Hey everyone, Alex coming at you with another video. Today is going to be another fan film review. I haven't done one of these in a good while. I've been just doing fan film reactions to different trailers or movies, but I've never taken my time to review it because I feel like doing a review, it takes too long, but when you could just react to it and then you could give a short, final thoughts at the last 2 minutes of the video, it's just really easy. But posting a review really requires you to have a lot of knowledge and you have to really kind of rewatch the movie to understand and get your points out. But anyway, today's review is going to be on Godzilla the Force of Nature. Now you're probably like, wait, where's the chapter 2 part? No, this is the first one. And oh my goodness, have I been putting off this movie like a bad homework assignment? Have you ever been in school and you have a homework assignment and you really don't want to do it, but you've been stalling for weeks and it's like the last day of school, so you turn it in? That's pretty much what I've been doing with this fan film of Lewis's. This Lewis fan film came out over 2 months ago, so I've been really just putting it off, and I don't know why. And I think the main thing that motivated me to finally watch it and get to it was because number one, I'm on Christmas break, so I actually have the time to actually take time off and take my time watching it instead of having to rush it. But number two is because chapter two has already been out, so I feel like what's the whole point of waiting it even longer to review chapter two when other people have already done it? So anyway, I watched chapter one, and there were some pretty good aspects of it, and there were a lot of bad aspects for some reason, and it wasn't with the way how it was all shot, but you'll kind of understand what I mean when I actually get to talking about it. So our two main characters are John and Tom, I believe. We have Super Mario Zilla's character and Luis Duran's character, who are actually the two main characters. They take place as military soldiers. One of them gets injured when a bear attacks, and they get abandoned when Godzilla's at the hospital. Hashtag I'm sorry, John.
I'm sorry, John!
But anyway, when it comes down to the movie, here were the things that I liked about the movie. One of the main things that I liked is how the movie tries to incorporate so many monsters. It has a wide variety of monsters, and that's something that very few fan films do, is have such a big cast of monsters, but that can also be a really bad thing to have such a big cast of monsters. So, I feel like I should get into the things that I disliked first, actually. So when it came down to things that I disliked, one of the biggest things that I was really disappointed about was Abira. Now, this wasn't about how the movie was made or anything like that. This was about a casting decision by Luis Duran himself. When you watch some of the trailers or the teaser spots or even, some of the clips from Godzilla the Force of Nature before the actual movie came out, Abira was portrayed as this big menace that's going to be taking on the military. Now, he does take on the military, but Abira is barely in the film. He's in it for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes of the entire movie, and that's just not even screen time. That's just how much of an existence he has in general. And I'm really disappointed with Abira. Very few fan films even consider putting Abira in a fan film, because yet alone even making him potentially the final villain of a Godzilla film, which I'm really disappointed because I would have loved to see Abira. One of my favorite things about Godzilla to Save the Earth, the video game, is when Godzilla fights Abira. That's one of my favorite scenes because it shows that Abira is this big threat to Godzilla, because Abira has rarely been seen as a threat. Now, I did consider Abira a threat in Godzilla vs. Sea Monster. He was a very big threat to Godzilla and Mothra, potentially. But the thing is that ever since that, and then down to Godzilla Final Wars, Abira, it's good. It's bad enough that Abira barely appears in any form of Godzilla media, but the most recent time he appeared was in Godzilla Final Wars, and in that movie, he was killed off by the military the first time, and the second time it was cut off along with Hedorah. But at least Hedorah is respected and viewed as a big threat to Godzilla among fans, whereas Abira is just kind of a mad kind of monster. But I really like Abira, that's just me. So that's why when I saw Abira in his fan film trailer, I was like, oh snap, Abira's going to be in this movie. But once I saw him get killed by the military, I was extremely disappointed at how Abira was teased off in the promotional videos of the movie, but then killed off in about 3 minutes. So I was extremely disappointed with Abira's role in this movie. I'm happy Abira was in this movie, but I'm not happy about the way he was portrayed. Alright, the second thing I did not really care for about the movie was the way how the monsters appeared. First of all, when the monsters started appearing, they said that he will awaken, and they were referring to Godzilla awakening. My grammar is so bad right now because I can't speak properly. But Godzilla appears in this movie. You know, the main characters are saying that Godzilla is going to awaken because all these monsters are appearing. And that makes sense, sort of. But the thing is that more than one Godzilla appears. You know, you get a clip of Rise Goji fighting off King Ghidorah. Now, not also that, but King Ghidorah gets killed. I mean, you have a big monster like King Ghidorah and you put him in this movie and you're like, oh snap, it's King Ghidorah. I mean, I did not expect such a big threat to appear so early on in Luis Duran's franchise. It's kind of like what they did with Batman v Superman. They try to have too many characters: Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Godzilla the Force of Nature does the same thing. They have three Godzillas in the first film, and then they're trying to establish this big villain, you know, like Doomsday is the equivalent of King Ghidorah, but he gets killed off in like the second film. I mean, yeah, Louis Duran is pretty much DC um when it comes down to the Kaiji fan base, because Louis Duran is trying to put so many monsters and outdo everyone else, but it's only the second film. Like if this was the third film of Louis Duran's franchise, I would be like, yeah, that's pretty good. But if it was the fourth film of Louis Duran's franchise and he put all these monsters, I'll be like, yeah, this is a great way to put a fourth film, you know, or a third one. But the fact that he's doing it in the very second, I mean, it just feels like it's all done so quickly with no time to really process anything. Plus, I don't even know if this movie is connected to Godzilla Rise of Destruction. It has the Godzilla character from Godzilla Rise of Destruction, but then they have every other Godzilla, like Godzilla 2002 and the Heisei Godzilla. Another big problem with all these Godzillas is that they don't explain why multiple Godzillas exist. They say that Godzilla's awakening, that he will defeat all the monsters and that he will destroy all of humanity, but they're only referring to one general Godzilla incarnation, but then multiple other versions appear. So I could understand if Lewis was doing an alternate timeline, kind of alternate universe, you know, warp dimension kind of storyline, then I would kind of be able to understand that. Sure, it probably wouldn't be like the best way to explain it, but at least it would be some sort of form to explain why all these Godzillas are appearing. Also, Rodan and Muto literally appear out of nowhere. I'm serious. As soon as Abira is killed, Rodan appears the next scene. And you're just like, wait, where did Rodan even come from? I didn't see Rodan's origin. I don't even know how he appeared. You could at least say that, oh, Rodan appeared by nuclear testing or something like that, appeared from a volcano. If you at least showed that, we would at least know like some sort of origin story or even an origin point for Rodan to begin his destruction. But the fact that you show Rodan appear right as soon as the military defeat Abira, it just shows that Rodan appears out of nowhere. And the same thing goes for Muto. He really appeared out of nowhere too, with no purpose to the storyline, in fact, at all. As a matter of fact, the main characters don't even identify or even acknowledge the monster's existence in this movie. The only one they really acknowledge is Abira because he injured one of the main characters. But all the other monsters really just appear without any sort of consent to the main characters to acknowledge their existence or even give out their names to the main audience. I guess it's assuming that the audience already knows the name of these monsters, which most likely the audience does know the name of these monsters. But the fact that these monsters appear without the characters even knowing their names really makes it as if the monsters really just appear out of nowhere to even the human characters in the scene, because the human characters are probably just as baffled at how the monsters appear out of nowhere. But anyway, yeah, I've been just really going on. This is almost sounding like a rant, which I feel like I should have given off my negative opinions about the film first, because there were just lots of negative things about the film, in my opinion. Well, not really negative, but things that I felt like could have been executed in a more proper way, or things that could have been better, in my opinion. So those were some of the things that I really did not really care for when it came down to Godzilla Rise for Destruction. I mean, Godzilla the Force of Nature. I'm so sorry. I say Rise for Destruction because I'm so used to saying that title. But anyway, I will be checking out part 2 later. But yeah, I keep on getting off topic from the actual movie. I wanted to talk about some of the things that I did like about the movie. Now, one of the things that I did like the movie, of course, is the fact that Abira was in this movie. Now, even though Abira did not play that big of a role in the movie, the fact that Abira was in this movie was pretty good because very few Godzilla fans have ever considered putting Abira in a fan film. Now, I did like the scene with Abira fighting off the military. It was a really well executed military fight scene, and the setting was very perfect. It looked very natural because it took place outside in the grass. You know, it actually felt like it was taking place in a natural environment, and that was a really good shot. Not shot, but set. So I give Lewis an appreciation for that when it comes to the whole Abira scene. I just wish Abira played a more prominent role. Now, another thing that I did like, however, is the fact that, you know, Rise Goji appeared. in this film. Now I think that's pretty interesting that Rise Goji appeared. I mean, it is like Lewis's main kind of icon. But the thing is that Luis Duran nowadays he compares his own Godzilla to the equivalent of Godzilla 1998. And when you compare your own Godzilla to Godzilla 1998, it shows that your Godzilla is going to be more of a mock Godzilla for all the other Godzillas that are going to appear in this film. Because literally, Rise Goji is really just kind of a more of a joke version of Godzilla, I guess, in Lewis's perspective. But I did like the battle between Godzilla and Rodan and Muto. The fact that Godzilla was able to take on both of these flying deadly monsters is really interesting. But the thing that I didn't really care for this battle is because the monsters appear out of nowhere and there's no origin story for them. And Godzilla 2002, or Godzilla 2000 repaint version, as most people would probably call them, really appeared out of nowhere too. So there's no like big build up to a fight. It just kind of happens, and you're like, oh, okay, Muto and Rodan are killed, even though the audience or the origin story was never explained for these two monsters. So why should I care if they died? They just died, and it's time for the plot to progress. But anyway, that's enough about the whole origin thing. I could be talking about that for 20 minutes. So, some of the things that I also did not really like were some of the effect decisions made by Luis Duran. Some of the effects were pretty good in the movie, they were better than the last movie, that's for sure. But I think one of the worst effects, well, not really worst effects, but one of the worst decisions from Luis Duran came from the fact that Godzilla at one point for a few seconds turned into a burning mode. Now, some of the orange parts of Burning Godzilla 2000 really did overlap, and I didn't really like that scene, I didn't really like the fact that Godzilla 2002 was turning into this burning form. I thought it was really just kind of pushing on the edge of why is this happening? Because, I mean, I don't know. I never pictured Godzilla 2000 really in a burning form unless it was critical mass. But even then, I'm just not really a big fan of the concept of Godzilla 2000 going into burning mode. I don't know. It's just something about its design that I never really thought about it too much. But the fact that Godzilla turned into this form for a short period of time, for a second, it doesn't really affect his fight. He doesn't turn into that form in his fight, so it really doesn't boost his fighting capabilities because he was already able to defeat Rodan and Muto on his own. And also, Godzilla 2002, it's 2002, which, he actually rips off Shin Gojira, which is really interesting. When he shoots his atomic breath, it's executed in the very same manner as Shin Gojira's atomic breath scene. It even splits into multiple lasers and such. And it's kind of weird how Godzilla 2002 has Shin Gojira's capabilities and attributes when Shin Gojira appears in the next film. So if you already have all of Shin Gojira's powers, what's the whole point of adding Shin Gojira? I guess Luis Duran had all these versions of Godzilla because he saw everything unique about them. For example, Godzilla 2014 was the more animalistic and predatorial type. Shin Gojira was the very laser light show kind of Godzilla. Heisei Godzilla was the tough brute. Godzilla 2002 was the more kind of agile Godzilla. Rise Goji was really just his mascot, and he just probably wanted to get that out there as a joke. But when you have Godzilla 2002 taking away the unique attributes of Shin Gojira, who's going to appear in the next film, it really defeats the purpose of having Shin Gojira in the next film for having his attributes or unique features, because another Godzilla can already do the same thing as Shin Gojira could do. So, really, that's one thing that I also did not like about Luis Duran effect choice. So yeah, that's one thing that I also did not really care for. Another thing about the human characters is that they really just appear, you see the main characters, but there's no like backstory or any reason for them to really have any emotion. They don't explain like any backstory behind them or how they knew each other. They could have just said, hey, remember back from when? And I feel like this movie, I'm not sure if it's connected to Godzilla Rise for Destruction, but if it was, I feel like it could have had a better way to kind of establish that by mentioning Ziltrodon, or at least showing a clip of him, stock footage of Ziltrodon or something relating to that. But if this movie's not connected to Godzilla Rise for Destruction, then why the heck do these Godzillas appear out of nowhere? And why Rise Goji appearing just kind of randomly? I don't know. I feel like there were lots of flaws with this movie. I know I'm really talking negatively about it, but the thing is that the movie does have a lot of flaws, and I feel like it could have been executed in a much better way because this movie had a lot of potential. It had a big cast of monsters. It had a lot of decent Godzilla voice actors that are well known within the community. And it has a very big Godzilla YouTuber around the whole movie, Luis Duran. But anyway, yeah. Some things that I did like, however, again, I thought some of the effects were pretty good. I thought the fight between Godzilla, Rodan, and Muto was pretty good. And overall, I thought the fights scenes were really great. There was a lot of destruction in the movie. However, some of the destruction with the human characters watching by, it was really just kind of random because, there was one scene where like, they were standing on a building and Godzilla came towards that building, and it was like green screen effects. I mean, Luis Duran uses a lot of soldier green screen effects. I mean, I think there was also another scene where a boy was like standing on a building, and then that was actually green screen too, and he had like a blue shirt, but the actual figure's wearing a red shirt. So I felt like the movie would have been better without those little green screen effects too, because it really takes away from the whole atmosphere of the movie. But yeah, again, I rate this movie overall. I don't know. I guess I'm gonna rate it a 6.5 out of 10. I felt like this movie could have been better. It had a big cast, it had a big Godzilla YouTuber going for it, and Luis Duran definitely improved from Godzilla Rise for Destruction when it came to fights and explosions. But the thing is that unlike Rise for Destruction, Godzilla Rise for Destruction at least had an origin story. It had a very loose origin story for Ziltrodon. You saw how he appeared on the nuclear explosion on the island, and how Ziltrodon kind of came to life from that nuclear explosion, as it was implied for Godzilla Rise for Destruction. At least you saw the appearance and the origin of Ziltrodon. He didn't just start out in the city out of nowhere. No, he appeared from the island. So at least it had an origin point for Ziltrodon, unlike Rodan, who pretty much appeared out of nowhere. So I felt like Godzilla Rise for Destruction, it had a much better storyline in my opinion. Believe it or not, but Godzilla Rise for Destruction, they took the time to flesh out their characters. They took time to flesh out the scientists and the military soldiers to kind of explain what was going on with the storyline and the plot. But when it came down to Godzilla the Force of Nature, the human characters were just saying random things that didn't really have any purpose or reason or any explanation for why they were saying or why these things were going on. So I feel like Godzilla Rise for Destruction, although the effects and the fighting wasn't as good as Godzilla the Force of Nature, Godzilla Rise for Destruction, however, did have a better origin story and storyline for the monsters and characters and better fleshed out character development compared to Godzilla the Force of Nature. So Luis Duran improved on one thing that from the other movie that failed to do, but then he de-improved pretty much from what the other movie did pretty well. So yeah, again, I give this movie a 6.5 out of 10. I'm gonna check out part 2 later, maybe in a live stream or reaction video. And I hope the movie is kind of good. I mean, it is 26 minutes. I'm not sure how you can cram 26 minutes into these films. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Bye.